This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
It's 11:06 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. You're on Ask Rabbi.
And welcome today. And I'm testing out a new mic on my iPad as well today, so we'll see how that's working. Look at the technology that we've got, you know.
Cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, a little mini mic.
A little mini mic. And
yeah,
it's
a little
you know,
clip-on mic.
Yeah, one of those things. So we'll see how
cool.
that works. And, that was quite a show last week with Mohammed.
It really was.
It was great. I'm so glad that he could answer some questions, and he said he was willing to come back, so we'll do that again.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that as it fits his schedule.
And he brought out some stuff that I had never heard before.
What was that?
About the birth.
Oh, about that Mary had a miracle birth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in the state of shock listening to that. It was interesting.
You know, most people really know very little about other religions.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. You know, you know, that's evidenced in things like that idiot. This is, I don't want Jews to convert. I just want them to accept Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, that is conversion, sir, and you actually do know that. You're really not that foolish. You do know it. So, or at least one would certainly hope that somebody who steps up in front of a congregation is wise enough to know that.
In theory.
In theory. And are we having internet problems here? Because
no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Television's rolling. Everything's going.
Okay, we're good.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. We're back. Okay. So again, as I said, when somebody steps in front of a congregation, certainly I was required to do some comparative religion study. I was required to compare how God is the same God. Right? If it's one universe created by one God, you can't have a different God in another religion. It's still the Creator God. The Creator God. And if you think it's a different God, you're the polytheist, not the person you're yelling at. But, that's often the case, right? We project the things we don't like about ourselves.
Yep.
And then, paint them onto somebody else, and then we can take a pot shot at it and think that we're not taking pot shots at ourselves. I always love that when I hear somebody saying, oh, this one's a this one's a that, and it's the same thing. It's like, I think we're projecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very important, but we need to get to know each other. And, that was one of the big things that we need to be aware that everybody's religion is their effort to approach the divine. And that includes atheists and agnostics, right? Because they're trying to figure out what their relationship is with the universe, with the world. Okay?
I do not understand atheism. When you look around this planet and you see what's here.
Okay, so I'm going to offer that the big problem with atheism is not that they don't believe in God, it's that they don't believe in the God they've been taught. Okay, what do I mean?
Wait a minute, back up.
Okay, so when I really talk to an atheist and I say to him, what do you reject? What is it? Well, it's usually some image of an old man with a big white beard sitting on a throne. I rejected that when I was 5. But if you were still taught that as a teenager or as a young adult, that is what God is, because the people teaching you did not have a good founding into who and what God is, and they had so anthropomorphized God that they couldn't teach a mature concept of, God is without form, God is this, God is that. Then that's what they're rejecting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a God of vengeance that they're rejecting. It's a God of this. It's a straw man God that's being rejected. Okay, and yeah, they're rejecting the fallacy. Or they're committing the fallacy, one or the other. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So when I really talk, there's a really good friend that I have who says, I'm an atheist. She says that to me all the time. And I said, no, what but you say to me, you're spiritual and you believe in this and you believe in that. And she's, yeah, but I don't believe in God. I don't think God needs to be buttered up. So, neither do I. I don't think God thinks God needs to be buttered up. That would be a pretty petty God. Right? So
she almost sounds like an agnostic.
Well, we had an interesting time because as we talked more and more about it, and I said to her, what do you believe in? She said, I believe in love and connection. I said, okay, so your God is named love and connection. Right? Your connection to God is through love because you believe in this overarching goodness to the world. And, so if we say, thank you for love, thank you, source of love, are you okay with the rest of the words of the prayers? And she said, yes. I said, so, okay, so we were actually working on a prayer book for her son. Okay, for his becoming a bar mitzvah, which was interesting unto itself.
Wait a minute. He's got an atheist mother, and he's going to be bar mitzvah?
Yeah.
Okay,
well, he's going to
now.
He's going to. Everybody becomes a bar or bat mitzvah when they hit adolescence. It's the celebration of it. You're not bar mitzvahed. You are a bar or bat mitzvah.
Gotcha. Okay.
You're not adulted. You become an adult. And, some people celebrate that with drinking. Some people celebrate it with whatever. And so a bar mitzvah celebration is a celebration of having achieved that status. It's a rite of passage. And, and usually it's couched inside the tradition. And if we think of it, right, there are many different cultural, traditional ways that we recognize adulthood. The quinceañera is right a version of that. The old coming out parties that were popular in the South for a long time. Sweet 16s, a little bit older than a bar bat mitzvah,
but not much.
Not much. Right, it's into that same period.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmation. Right. Sure. Those are all coming of age kind of things, saying that you now know enough to take on a more adult role in the community. Right. And that's, we're not saying to a 13-year-old, you're an adult. I'm sorry. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you now know enough to know you don't know everything and that you've got a lot to learn. So that's what a bar bat mitzvah celebration is. You're coming of age. You're now smart enough to know that there's a whole heck of a lot you need to learn. It's really the beginning of learning. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate when a child thinks that that's their graduation ceremony and they're now done. Because what happens with that is that you do leave with that childhood idea of God that you have not fully formed. And I think that that's where a lot of agnostic/atheistic concepts come from. If people were taught a bigger, better idea of God. And so what have I done? I've moved down teaching that concept to younger kids because I find they can accept it. They can understand it in some ways sometimes better than their parents can. And so sometimes I'm actually teaching the parents through the kids.
So you run into a lot of scientists who are atheists that basically are the Big Bang type, I would say.
Well, and Big Bang's an interesting misnomer, too, because you need ears to hear a bang, so it's the big... right. No, there's no way to hear it. There's no organ to hear it. Does a tree in the forest make a sound? Yes, but but nobody's there to hear it, right? It still has and of course, there you've got some of the philosophers say, God hears these things, right? So of course they happen. That's one of the answers to that argument. There's also animals and things that hear it. As we have a new kitten in my house that arrived.
Wait a
this
minute,
week.
with the dogs?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, she's fine.
That's
She's fine.
like trouble.
She's fine. We, I tell people we've got a full house now. But she arrived, and I was out with the dogs this morning, and when I came in, my husband said, she was listening to you the whole time out there with the dogs. So, animals hear lots of things. So let's go back and take a look at some of the things. There is wisdom in every religious tradition. This thing is just not holding out at all.
Oh, your tablet?
Yeah, my tablet is like dead. So I'm gonna bear with me, folks. I'm gonna end that one and I'm gonna start it again. I don't know what its problem is.
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
The dangers of Facebook.
It does this sometimes, and I don't know why.
Oh, did you hear the interesting story that I saw on was it CBS or NBC, that there were several churches talking about the fact that, because they were broadcasting, streaming live on Facebook.
Okay, keep going.
And that their services over the last 3 weeks started disappearing off Facebook.
Oh, probably because they were putting it in story and not on...
Whatever it was, and of course Carol obviously came up with music copyright. That Facebook will pull you down if there's certain music.
if it's...
If there is unlicensed music...
Okay.
In their mind, they'll get rid of it quick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know. It's crazy. Just absolutely crazy. But, and of course, getting back to streaming, you've been doing that for several years.
Yeah, we've been streaming, so we've been a little bit cautious about things. Are we going to be perfect? No. So, we'll see where it goes. Here we go. Now it's got me. It took until now to come on and be here.
The beauties of the internet.
I'll tell you, sometimes you got to love it. I have a saying that I love technology when it works.
Yeah.
Or technology is great when it works. And when it doesn't...
Just ask CBS News.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, anybody, right? It's an ongoing challenge.
You did hear what happened to them, right?
No.
World News Tonight was not there the other night.
Ah, okay.
They lost audio out of Washington, D.C.
Oops.
And they have no backup.
Idea. They have no backup.
They have no backup.
Wow.
And it's like, at a network? Really?
Nobody had a tablet or a cell phone.
I know.
I'm sorry. In today's technology, that is the backup. And, it is for us. We've got the Twyla broadcast system in the congregation. We've had it for years. And it's got 2 different cameras that can do all kinds of things. And although most of the time it's one fixed video, there's a long story behind that. But in any event, so the system broadcasts, but I always have my iPad charged and ready.
You're ready to go.
And, in a pinch, you get it off the phone. And, yes, it's not as good a picture, but it's still something. It still goes out.
All those iPhone cameras are just amazing.
Oh, they're getting more and more amazing, as soon as I can.
Just amazing.
Yeah, I've still got a 7, folks, so if anybody wants to donate an 11 to me, well, we can talk.
Yeah, I'll be moving in that direction soon.
Yeah, I've got to save my pennies, but they are pricey, but I will someday get there. Probably when they come out with the 12 or the 13.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
That's fine.
You'll be giving these away as a throwaway phones.
Yeah. When they give these away as a throwaway phone, I'll be one of the ones in line.
Me too.
And it's not that far away, really, because they have to keep moving to keep their audience buying. I'm just not wealthy enough to be in that group.
No,
so,
they're expensive.
Yeah, I understand. And if you can afford it, hey, power to you, folks. Keep Apple alive and going. Please do, because I like their products. So anyway, back to learning about each other. There's a whole element of kindness. And we define listening as wanting to hear. And I'm going to go and say that wisdom is wanting to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Wisdom is wanting to learn. It's opening yourself up to not only knowing something, but in fact learning how to apply it, how to use it constructively. And so that to me is really what we're about. Most people focus in on what I'm going to call the 4 basic human needs. The need to be safe, right? So that if you feel your life threatened, you're going to focus on it with, if you're afraid the walls are going to fall in on you, then the only thing you're going to worry about is the walls. And you can even become phobic about it. But once you're sure that the walls are, they're going to stay, then you can start to look at other things. So now that you've got certainty, now you're going to start to look for variety. You're going to look for significance. Everybody needs to feel important. That's just a basic human need. We need to know that our life matters. And that's why the movements have been things like Black Lives Matter. It's not okay to treat anybody, any human being, as if they don't matter. They do. They bring something to the table. Without everybody, there is something lost in the mosaic of life. We're not all supposed to be red. We're not all supposed to be blue. We're not all supposed to be green. We're supposed to be whatever we are in the best possible way. We're all charged with being the best human being that we can be. And we all bring something to the table, even if it's a dissenting view. Right? And as I've often, people in my congregation have heard me say this very often, we have only humans to deal with. They bring their baggage with them. As much as we tell them leave it outside the door, and we're not talking about Samsonite, people don't. They bring it with them, and you have to look at the package. Does the package contribute, or does it detract in total? You can have to, you can't just not like the fact that they're loud, or that they dress funny, or that they don't wear the dress you want, or the shirt that you want, or whatever. Those are not valid reasons to kick somebody out. You need to look at the total package and see if it moves the group forward, or does it pull the group down? And if it's pulling the group down, what can you do to change that?
It seems like in today's times, though, that is just so different.
We have so many one-issue people that wear blinders to the rest of the issue.
Oh, yeah. It's awful, and it just seems to be getting worse.
Yeah. I think it is. I think that we're polarizing, that a lot of the rhetoric we're seeing, a lot of the fallacies we're seeing, are tending to polarize people. But the reality is that we need to deal with whole people, because everybody is a whole person, with all of their flaws, with all of their issues. And the question is, if I put that person on a balance, are we moving forward, or are we moving backward? If we're moving backward, then we need to find a way to change that. And it might be changing the system, not just, how can we work the system so that person can be a contributing member?
How in the world do you deal with a Holocaust denier? That is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, a variety of ways, and it's ironic that you say that, because I'm dealing with one right now. I've got somebody in my life, and I've got a phone call to make afterward. Holocaust denier, somebody who doesn't want to know, so it's a mental illness. It's a mental illness. There is more than enough evidence out there to anybody who does any kind of reasonable, objective research to know that Nazi Germany did horrible things to many people, to gays, to Jehovah's Witness, to, gay, and when I say gay, I mean gay, lesbian, because they didn't care what you were. Anything that didn't fit their ideal in their policy of eugenics, they threw out. Okay, and they tried to actually kill it. Right? They said that those individuals that don't meet their eugenics model, which included Hitler, actually, which is another interesting piece. right? That those folks were not worthy of breathing air, right? And there was this concept that those individuals were pulling more out of society than they were giving because of their quote-unquote defects, as they tried to do this eugenics experiment of breeding this super race. It's not that they thought they were, the concept was put forth that the super race can come from you, right? That's why they collected blonde, blue-eyed kids and bred them, right? It was a human project of horrible proportions. And, lots of people, Jews were slaughtered en masse, so were others, unfortunately. And I really wish that was the last genocide going on. But right now in the world, there's plenty of them, actively ongoing, folks.
Yeah, Africa's just...
Africa's filled with it. Europe's had a good number of them. We don't have to look in very late history. These have happened since. So when we say never again, right, which is a Jewish phrase, that's a response to it, we need to apply that more broadly. We need to do the sea change for people to make that not an acceptable behavior. And, I'm going to go somewhere. I don't know if you saw it on my wall or not. There was some recent blasting through a Native American burial ground. Yeah. You want to talk about something that just blows my mind. My thought is, I look at places where Jewish tombstones have been used to pave roads and things like that, and we're horrified, right? Because that's a desecration of a funeral ground. Hello? If it's, I'm sorry, you can't object to it being done to you if you don't object to it being done to others. It's either right or it's wrong. And that might sound black and white. I'm not saying it to be black and white, but I'm here to say you can't say it's not okay to do that to me, but it's okay for me to do that to somebody else. No, it's not.
But that's been happening to the American Indians for decades.
Well, you're so right. There are the number of even modern treaties that are entered into and then ignored. I actually did a paper for my PhD on American Indian psychology. There's very, very few psychologists coming out of that community, and there's very, very few that go back and serve that community, even though they desperately need it. And the abuses are just horrific. When I turned my paper in, the comment from my professor on my paper was, "I read your paper in tears." And I knew what she meant, because it's a very sad story, and it's not one that's anywhere near over. And I'll gladly share that paper with anyone. It's not that old research. It's pretty current. It's from my PhD. But just the state of, and APA has a division of American Indian psychology. They've got many different divisions inside APA, the American Psychological Association.
Which tribes were you focusing on?
I was looking at all of them, and there's hundreds of recognized nations.
Sure.
And the particular blasting is the Tohono O'odham reservation in Arizona, and there's a picture on my Facebook wall that shows the Saguaro, and they smashed and they blasted through Saguaro too. It's just a total disregard of everything that's sacred in that area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, where was this in Arizona?
It's in the Tohono O'odham land, where they want to build some of the wall. They're building it as quickly as they can.
Is that the old Pima Indians? Oh, okay.
They changed names. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, I was lost. Yeah, that's how Pima County got its name.
Right.
Where Tucson is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they went back to a more original name.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
as
cool.
they should. So, all of this is ongoing. This is it's doing it again. I love technology. I've got to figure out what its problem is. So we'll deal with that more. I'm sorry to the folks watching on Facebook. I know that it's freezing. I'm sorry about that. We're trying to do what we can. Hopefully it'll stay for the most part. I don't know. Maybe it's not hooking into the internet correctly here.
Could be.
In any event, that's ongoing. And there's some real tragedies that people are somehow missing, ignoring, and not aware of. So I deal with Holocaust deniers in that same way that I deal with those who don't care about what's happening to everybody else. That's what that really is. It's a conspiracy theory kind of a thing. I don't want, where that's coming from is I don't want it to be true because then I'd have to act differently. Okay?
Ooh.
Yeah, right? So
yeah,
that's really what's going on. If I deny it, then I can pretend that it didn't happen, and then I can say that blah, blah, blah. But if I own that, right, if I own that it really happened, then I've got some kind of a responsibility into the repercussions of it and into what's going on. So Holocaust denying is one of those things that falls into potential hate crime area, right? Because if you're not careful, you can trip that line very, very easily.
Sure.
And, Germany's got much harsher laws, understandably, than we do because they saw what it did to their country.
And all you have to do is go to Germany or Poland.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's right there.
Well, the other thing that's worth noting is that certainly Germany went out of their way to hide what they were doing. They knew it was wrong. They went through, and in some cases they actually bulldozed camps as they evacuated them. As they were losing the war, they were starting to evacuate the camps. And they bulldozed them and put farmland in. And and there are people there who try to say, no, they didn't happen. I don't know from it. That's an I don't want it to be true statement. And so you need to challenge that person gently, not confrontationally, but gently to say, well, what have you researched to find that? And eventually they're gonna bluster and they're gonna get to fallacies, and then you've hit their rock bottom and they're out of arguments. Right? When people start fallacying, they're out of arguments or they're trying to be sensational. Yeah, we certainly see that in my critical thinking class. We do a couple of what I think are a lot of fun exercises. They write a paper on any issue that they're passionate about, and then they submit that to the fallacy analyzer. There's a wonderful program out there called Tell Walter, developed by Dr. Elliot Cohen.
Fallacy analyzer?
Yeah, it's called Tell Walter. You can get
that
it on
would never work in government.
Well, okay, so the second paper they do is a politician's paper.
Oh, God.
Okay, and they have to pick a current politician, a Republican and a Democrat. They have to analyze at least 3 fallacies from each, and it can be from a public speech, it can be from their website, but it has to be somewhere where they can send me the link so I can verify that they reported it accurately, that they're not just saying, that Joe Blow says that Simon whoever used a fallacy. I don't want that. I want the student has to cite the statements and then analyze why that's a fallacy.
You do that on an hourly basis.
And politicians are rife with it because they, particularly in a Q&A session, they're not as likely to do it in a prepared speech if they stick to their script. But when they start riffing, they start running out of arguments, and when people run out of arguments, they start fallacying. Fallacying. Did you know that was a verb?
No, I didn't,
just created
as a
it.
matter of fact. Okay.
Phallicizing, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that one to see where it really falls. But anyway, they start using fallacies. It's easy to do it that way correctly. And that's your clue that they've run out of either knowing something or having something reasonable to rely on. So politicians are rife. And the criteria, by the way, at the end of the paper, I cannot tell if you are a Democrat or a Republican. In other words, I don't want you just being a Democrat and lambasting Republicans, nor do I want a Republican doing the same to Democrats. I want you to see that both your side and the other side are equally guilty of the same things. Some do it a little bit less, but, there's still plenty. I've got clips of everybody doing it. So there's no shortage. So that's one. The next assignment is to go to advertising and find the fallacies. Another area rife with fallacies, advertising. If I can't make a good claim, I'll use a fallacy and hope you believe me. Right, so drink this snake oil and you will earn $1 million in the next 30 minutes.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, but a fallacy is not just a lie, but it's an invalid set of logic. In fact, it can be true and still be a fallacy. The conclusion can be true.
On.
Well, the
That's
conclusion.
impossible.
No, a fallacy. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Conclusion: Socrates has a beard. Okay, that's a fallacy, but it's probably true that Socrates had a beard. Even though that actually is one of the first conspiracy theories. One of Socrates' opponents claimed that he didn't have a beard and that he went around to barbershops and fashioned a fake one. That's an ad hominem type fallacy. Right, so, if you can't grow a beard, you can't be a philosopher.
The first wig shop.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was the first, but in any event. So, these kinds of things are not new. They've been going around since dirt. So that's their second. And here's the third one. You might like this one. Watch a Disney movie and pick out 3 or more fallacies.
You've talked about Disney before.
In the Disney movie. Yeah. Disney, people in America do not recognize how influential Disney movies have been.
Oh, yeah.
Because kids, it was the babysitter for many years, right? If the kid's noisy, pop them in front of a Disney movie. And what does the movie teach? Gaston is the ideal male, right? Yes, he's a villain, but he's glorified, right? The 3 little blonde bimbos fawn over him, right? He abuses his best friend and sidekick. He abuses him horribly. He does everything, and when he storms into Belle's house, right, that's unlawful entry. She did not invite him in. He pushes the door in and comes in. He pins her against the wall a couple of times. He throws his feet up on her table, informs her that he's going to marry her and force her to live this certain life. And, she finally is able to open the door and shove him out. But, yeah, I mean, that's as graphic as Disney can get to, quote-unquote, a rape scene. And that's not, yeah.
Wow.
If you look at it critically, you realize that. And because Gaston is glorified, we are teaching males that that's an acceptable behavior, that you will be adored for it by those cute, curvy, blonde things. That it's okay to be so egotistical and think that you're the center of the universe, because that's what Gaston thinks. And it doesn't matter that he's, quote-unquote, the bad guy, because that piece doesn't register. The rest of his persona does, right? And the idea that, the Belle's not going to get a guy if she reads books and is smart.
Wow.
Right, she gets the guy because she's the prettiest thing. Right. In fact, Gaston tells her, why do you read books? They don't have pictures in them.
That's a guy thing.
Well, that whole idea of that being a guy thing, right? That's a stereotypic fallacy. And, we look at those things in really interesting ways. We want to make men and women more different than they are. There's beautiful, wonderful differences between males and females. And that should be celebrated as a added benefit to the tapestry of life. But don't tell a girl or a boy that they can't be good at music, art, math, language just because of their gender. When we actually look at, that's one of those wonderful statistics, right, I can almost talk, that statistics don't lie, but liars sure use statistics.
Use stats, yes.
Or as they all say, figures never lie, but liars sure figure, is the other version of that. And, so we look at something and they say, well, the average for boys is here and the average for girls is there. So, and they are significantly different. But the scatter of data is so large. Individuals that make up that average are so all over the chart that any individual boy or girl could be anywhere on the chart. The averages are different. But that doesn't mean that, this young girl can't play baseball.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Or run faster. And today the speeds on track are just off the charts. What would be different if we trained a girl to run like we train a boy? Right?
Sure.
I'm sorry, it would be nice if football was not nearly as dangerous to the players, period.
Well, and, we saw that UCLA with Bob Kersey and, with a lot of his female athletes, Jackie Joyner being one of them, who was just mind-boggling, as an athlete. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you were talking about Holocaust denier, so let's look at Hitler and what a famous black athlete. Right?
Owens.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah, right. That wasn't supposed to happen in Hitler's model, right? That a black could be so. I'm sorry, folks. Everybody. I don't care where your face shows up, what color you are. I don't care if you're purple with pink polka dots. It's what you bring to the table, not what you look like. Although we are visual creatures, and so we notice the differences first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jesse Owens truly ruined Hitler's day. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, when people start putting themselves in untenable positions, and then they're tasked with trying to defend those untenable positions, lest they be wrong, then they really start sawing off their own logs, and they have to get more and more vociferous to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, in Hitler's case, he was able to bring other things to bear, including a group that used him. Not that he wasn't a willing participant, but a group that used him to forward their own agenda as well. And unfortunately, yes, you can see that all over the world in all different cases. And not here to criticize anything or anybody, but the issue is, are we moving forward? Are we respecting each other? Are we treating each other like real human beings? And I've said this before, when you look around, do you see the God spark in everyone and everything? Because this is an amazing world that we live in. It's very easy in Florida to be complacent about the beautiful blue skies and the puffy white clouds, which have gotten, I think, bluer and puffier as we've done less driving. Although on the way up here, it didn't feel like there were any fewer cars.
Oh no, it was
on
jammed
the road.
this morning.
It's jammed, yeah. I'm sure that deaths on 95 are back up there, unfortunately. So, actually, we do a prayer in our congregation called the Go-Mail Blessing, and it includes a travel piece if you have traveled or will travel. And because of the times that, people do get killed traveling.
Sure.
And there's two things to recognize there. I teach my students that there is both being in the wrong place at the wrong time and being in the right place at the wrong time. What's the difference? Being in the wrong place at the wrong time is playing out in the street when a car comes by and hits you. Okay, that's the wrong place at the wrong time. You shouldn't have been there. The car was there, and unfortunate things happened. Being in the right place at the wrong time is you're on the sidewalk where you should be, but a car skips and goes out of control and hits you on the sidewalk. You're still hit by the car. You're still dead. but you were in the right place just the wrong time.
It's like that gang shooting the other night, that little girl that was hit in her own home. I mean, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, well, to live in society, to live in communities where gang shootings are common is to live in fear. Because bullets do go astray. There is, the military calls it collateral damage. But collateral damage happens all the time. Innocent people doing the right thing just happen to be in the way of harm.
But it seems like more and more incidents of that are occurring all the time.
Well, the preponderance of guns and ammunition contributes to it. The fact that it's okay in some neighborhoods to pull out a gun to settle an argument. It's not okay. Okay? I talked earlier about human needs. We started to talk about that, and then we got distracted on something. But so the 4 basic human needs are to feel safe or certain that you're okay, then to have significance, to be important. Then we want variety. Then we want, because you don't want the same salami sandwich every day. You want peanut butter and jelly at least one of the days. Whatever. Menu fatigue. And then there's a need for love and connection. Most people actually settle for connection because love is hard. Love takes a lot of work. And so many people will settle for connection. Those are the 4 basic human needs. Above those are the spiritual needs. One of those is to learn things, to acquire new knowledge. And the last one is to actually give back, to recognize that only by giving to society do you really achieve significance. You don't achieve significance by having the biggest house, the biggest car. But the easy way to satisfy those first needs, those first 4 human needs, unfortunately, especially in the hood, and that's not just any particular hood, but the hood in general, is with a gun. You point a gun at somebody, you feel safe because you're holding the gun. Okay? You're not worried about existing as much. Are you significant? Oh, you're very significant to the person at the business end of the weapon. Is there variety? Oh, yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. Anything where a gun is pulled becomes very volatile. You don't know whether the person's going to do something. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know how good your shot is. You've got a lot of variety going. Are you connected? You're absolutely connected to your victim. Okay, so you're satisfying those first 4 needs, but not in a healthy way. And that's going to take a sea change. That's going to take a cultural change. That's going to take our recognizing that that is not an acceptable. We've got to build that in to our children coming up, that is not acceptable as a means of achieving those needs. That we've, the way, and Jesus taught it, right? Confucius taught it. Moses taught it. The best way to connect with people is to give things, not bullets, but to give the things that they need, regardless of anything else, right? It's when we are able to be our best human beings that we can really achieve a lasting and a fulfilling sense of those needs. That's not new. I'm not saying anything new at all. I am just simply repeating what every tradition has taught. And the fact that every tradition has to teach it is a clue that we're not getting it.
Yeah, but we've only had a few thousand years.
Yeah, right. Some number of thousands of years. Yeah. Would that we would learn it. The other part of it is obviously there's a tendency in humans to take the shortcut. Some of that, some of that's survival. Okay, because when resources are slim, not using them, not expending them, is a contributor to survival. Right? When you don't have adequate food, being lazy is a survival mechanism. If you don't have food and water, it's not a good idea to go run a 4K marathon or
Right,
10K
yeah.
marathon or
Gotcha.
whatever a full marathon. I don't run marathons. I don't know how many kilometers it takes for a full marathon. So
26 miles.
26 miles, yeah. Right. So it's not a good time to do that if you don't have enough food and water to get by. And so there is a survival mechanism in humans that makes us inherently lazy. That includes thinking. Right? There's a wonderful video that I make my students watch as well. That's the science of thinking. And I'll give you a really quick example about it. Okay, if you go into the store and buy a baseball and a bat, and the bat costs $1 more than the ball, and it's $1.10 for the two of them, how much does the ball cost?
The bat's $1, right?
No.
Oh, no?
But see, that's your easy thinking, because
$1.10.
$1.05.
Oh,
It's
$1.05.
$1.10 for the two of them,
Okay.
and the bat is $1 more than the ball.
Yes, okay.
It's $1.05 and 5. But that takes thinking about the problem.
Gotcha.
The shortcut is to want to lop off the 10 cents and say, a buck. Right? That's the quick thinking. But it's often wrong. So that's why jumping to conclusions doesn't always work.
That's why I flunked psych.
That's math, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that course
But,
too.
so here's an interesting piece. They did a test where they put that question on the test, and something like 85% of the students got it wrong as they whipped through the test because of the speed of which people are trying to go through tests.
Yeah.
They took it. Here's an interesting piece. They put the font of the test, a hard to read font, in a lighter color, in a charcoal rather than a black. And something like 60% of the students got it right.
Ooh.
All they did was change the format of the test so that you had to go more slowly.
Yeah.
You had to figure out what it was saying. You had to engage the active thinker part of your brain.
And analyze it.
Once you had to engage the analyzing part of your brain, you came up with the correct answer much more easily. Because that part that takes a lot more calories, right, had to be engaged. Because you had to shut down the automatic part. Right, and it's the automatic part that gets us in trouble when we proofread something. Because that's the part that sees what it wants to see, because that's the quick and easy way to go through the text. Is to see what you expect to see, not see an error. The error stops you.
Right.
Right, and makes you engage in more costly thought processes. So we are inherently lazy. But it's not okay to continue to do that because we don't live in caves and we are not living a subsistence living. So when people want to be lazy, here's the flip side of that. They often have to perceive themselves as being in a sense of scarcity to justify their laziness.
Okay.
Okay? So we see this scarcity mentality coming out in people, that they because they have to justify their inaction, their unwillingness to move, to change. So they have to create problems for themselves, for whatever. And, it's breaking through that with cognitive thought that you need in order to move forward. And when we don't do that, that's when you get that gang think kind of thing, where people say, well, I'm just going along with the flow. I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. That's shorthand for I'm not going to think this through and make my own decision. I'm just going to, do the least I can do to get by, and I'll justify it by being part of the herd. And so we get this herd mentality. And it's very frustrating when you're trying to elevate people and move them to the next level. because, there's people will justify being part of the herd. And this is not a time to be part of the herd, but it's time to be part of the leadership of the world. Because we can make a difference. We can make the world better. That's not something that has to be left to somebody else. Right? As that Canadian mayor once said, don't think that you can't change the world. Small groups are the only thing that ever has changed the world. And it's true. It was a small group that started the American Revolution. It was a small group that led anything of significance. It's never everybody. It's never the herd mentality. It's the leader and the leader's followers. It's not just the leader. It's also the first group of people who say, this person's got a good idea. They're right. You need the visionary, but you also need the real leaders, to me, are the ones who say, that's a good idea. I'm going to back it. That's this person saying something real. I need to be able to move it forward. So this is as good a time as anybody. Say, folks, if you think what I'm saying is worth listening to, please consider being a sponsor of Ask a Rabbi. If what I'm saying resonates, please help us continue to do this because we do need some help. You can sponsor Ask a Rabbi. You're certainly welcome to help the congregation do its thing as well. So if you'd like to sponsor Ask a Rabbi, you can contact me. I'm easy to find. I'm easy to connect with. Or you can connect with the station, and that's 772-340-1590. This has been another one of those episodes where nobody's called in, so I'm going to assume they've been listening. And because I'm blown
pretty heavy duty stuff.
Here. Yeah, there has been some pretty heavy duty stuff today. Yeah. And so I think that it is important to recognize that we can make the world a better place, and that when we just go with the herd and let other folks do it, that's not in anyone's best interest, including your own. You need to support the things that are moving the world in a good direction. And you need to do that in whatever way you can.
There just seems to be a vacuum of leadership, though.
You're
all
right.
over the world.
You're right. Well, it's that first follower group, right? So there's a video that I show in the leadership things. There's a guy who gets up and dances on a hill. And he dances on the hill for a good while alone. And everybody else is just sort of chilling on the hill doing nothing in particular. Finally, somebody gets up and dances with him. And then a third person gets up and dances. Soon as that happens, as soon as there are, and I'm going to call those people who get up with the dancer, they're called first followers. They're also angels. They're supporting that dancer whose vision was to dance. And as soon as you see that, then you start to see the crowd starting to come up, and it becomes an event, a change. So we can be that, but it can't just be the visionary. It has to be that ring of followers who say, yes, that person's doing something that's worth doing. Because the herd, unfortunately, needs those leaders to make it move.
Wow.
Okay, this has been Ask a Rabbi. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb of Congregation Eitz Chayim in Port St. Lucie. Please join us for our virtual stream Friday nights at 7:30 on Facebook Live. And you can catch this on YouTube and all the other places that WPSL and WSTU are carried.
You got it. All right. Well, you have a good week.
Thank you. You too. God willing, see you next Friday at 11:05.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL Port St. Lucie. Talk of the Treasure Coast. Webcaster to the world.